there are all kinds of people who don't work, who don't help produce, but who consume. And if there are people who consume but don't produce, then the people who do produce have to produce extra in order for those who don't work to consume. That's true in every human society, Marx tells us. What distinguishes human societies is how they organize this, how they decide who's going to be a worker, who's not going to work, who's going to live off the surplus that the working part of the population delivers to the rest. And let me give you an example from the United States right now. We say the population of the United States is 330 million people, more or less. The size of our labor force, according to the United States Labor Department, is about 150, 155 million. In other words, half. In our society, half the people are producing a surplus big enough to sustain the other half. Nor is that unusual. So every society does it, but they do it differently. And here comes the interesting part. How does a slave society do it? Very interesting. It makes one group of people, the slaves, do all the work. In fact, the way slavery works, everything the slave produces, even the slave, is the property of the master. The master gets it all and then gives back to the slave enough to reproduce the slave, keeping the rest, the surplus, for the masters. So you can have a large number of people producing a surplus for a small number who live very high on that famous hog. In feudalism, Marx says it's kind of different, but similar. It's different in the sense nobody's a slave, but it's the same because a small number of people, the lords, the feudal lords, get the surplus produced by the mass of the workers who are called serfs. And now Marx draws the implication for us. Capitalism, he said, was very critical of slavery before it. Capitalism promised freedom, liberty, equality, fraternity, democracy would come with their changes, and they believed it sincerely. But what we've come to see, Marx said, was something different from what was promised. We don't have the liberty, equality, and fraternity. What we got was a new system that's different from the old. We don't have slaves, we don't have serfs, but we have something called employers and employees. And what that means is that a mass of people, the employees, do the work and produce an enormous surplus, which is in the hands of the employers, who use it to live high on the hog and to hire a vast array of people that they can sustain who don't work at all in terms of producing goods and services. The capitalist sustains, let's take an example. The capitalist owns and operates a chair factory, makes chairs. But the capitalist is scared that during the night people may come and take away the machinery. So he hires a person to go around and around the chair factory at night in a little Jeep to make sure nobody messes with things. He takes a part of the surplus he gets from his chair-making workers and gives it to this fellow in the Jeep. The guy in the Jeep doesn't help produce chairs. It has nothing to do with it. Completely irrelevant. How does he live if he doesn't help produce goods and services? Answer: a part of the surplus is given to him by the people who gather it into their hands. Those are the employers. Marx says, look at that. That shows us that we haven't broken from the pattern of slavery and feudalism. Even though we've changed to capitalism, we still have a mass of people doing the work, producing that surplus, as happens in all societies, but giving it to a tiny minority. Masters were a tiny minority, lords were a tiny minority, and employers are a tiny minority. And we allow them to decide who to support with that surplus, what to do with it. And Marx says, once you understand that, you can immediately see A powerful punchline. We don't have to do that. We don't need a master. We don't need a lord. And we don't need an employer. The workers could always have done this on their own. You could have a different system. There comes the critical insight of Marx, making clear what it means to do better than capitalism.